Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you guys for this new album. I find it to be incredible, and it's one of those where I mean, like all your albums, but really where you listen to it multiple times and you find like new things and new textures and new layers um, and we don't necessarily get that in a lot of music that comes out today. So I really appreciate that. That's your focus. Um, Kind of an overall question was, you know, are you, by the way, are you getting any feedback from me on my end?
No, I'm from my end. It's very good. It's very good.
Okay. Um, was it always your intention, this is for both of you, was it always your intention to create, music that brings calm and joy? Or is it more an effect of creating music that brought that about in you, that, creating music that makes you feel good?
Um, well, I'll just say very briefly. Yeah, I'm always. I only want to make music that actually improves my sanity and the way I feel about the world. And I even when I make when I'm writing sort of saddish stuff, it's uh there's a happy sadness. There's always a happy sadness there, and so that's why I do this. How do you, Rob? Over to you.
Uh, it's interesting that you say it's, sort of calm. Is that what you get from it, Clay? Is that,
I mean,
yeah.
that's the general effect that your guys' music has had on me. Um, is it typically it's always something I put on that brings me a sense of calm and lowers my anxiety, makes me feel,
Good,
uplifts my mood.
Yeah,
good.
I mean, that's really great. I mean, if it music, if it has any kind of effect on the listener, then you're doing something right, because the worst thing is, it's just like it's washing over you, it's background.
Mm.
And I know that some people possibly use the high llamas for that occasionally. I remember, Sean, I told you about some guy. I think I met some guy on MySpace one time. Do you remember MySpace? And
Mm.
he was talking about the High Llamas and a certain album or other. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Hawaii, or it might have been, yeah. And he said, "Oh, it's a great Kip album." And I said, "What? Kip album?" I said, "Oh." I said, what?" I didn't really understand what he meant. And he said, "I come in, I have a spliff, and I go to sleep on the sofa listening to it. Have a Kip," meaning,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Excellent.
yeah, and I just
That's
always remembered it. I've always remembered that story. Just
yeah,
okay. Well, that's what he was relaxed. He felt good. So yeah, it's. I'm not
yeah.
sure that's necessarily the intention when you start recording something. That it's going to necessarily have that. But yeah, a lot of our material does do that. Especially, I always revert to Snowbug. And kind of that record for some reason always feels has that same kind of effect on me, that kind of calming, very sort of smooth, and I don't mean that in a kind of smooth radio sense. I mean it in the kind of just a very soft. There's something soft about it that makes me feel pretty relaxed and calm. So
Yeah, that
yeah, I
was
mean,
John McIntyre's touch when he mixed it, I think. I would also say, Clayton, that there is. I'm not afraid of saying this now, but I whether you use this word, you know, advisedly or not, but I do think there's a spiritualism in what comes off High Lama's record, and I hope there is. Um, and I say that because I believe that we are in polarized times, and if the music that one makes offers some kind of spiritual contentment, and offers a bridge to people. Because one thing I always think is chords and melodies are like gifts. They when if you don't know somebody and you offer them a chord and a melody, it's kind of like a handshake as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, that's a big part of it for me now.
Yeah, I'll just say, I know, Sean, you had your own cancer journey. I had my own cancer journey the past few years, and when
Really, I didn't know that. I didn't know, Clayton. Where was it? Where was it for you?
yeah, so it was about 4 years ago. I was diagnosed with stage 4 head and neck cancer,
Wow, wow.
and so yeah, so they did 6 rounds of chemo, surgery, and then I had
Yeah,
radiation. And when they went to do the radiation, they would say, you want to play any music? And there were many days where I said, I want to play the High Llamas because I was going through
wow.
something that was, and so it was always like doing the radiation always brought me to a kind of a calm place. And
Yeah,
I'll say just through my recovery from, mental health and addiction, like for me, your guys' music is like
yeah,
a substitute for what I would
yeah.
need. So yeah,
Oh, Clayton, I'm glad you're with us, man. I'm
yeah,
glad you're with us.
Absolutely, that's brilliant that we could somehow be there and help a little bit as well. It's
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing you that makes stuff worth doing, I guess. You
Yes,
feel
it
like
does. Yeah,
if
it
it touches
does.
someone, yeah, that's what it's about. Otherwise, why,
It, yeah. I mean, money comes and goes, but a kind of a legacy of karma, a legacy of spiritualism is forever, I think.
oh, there's John.
Oh, wow, that is fantastic.
We'll wait for him to join.
He will have just finished a hard day, yeah, at the college. Yeah, John is
a grueling,
a se-
a grueling bike ride home.
and then grueling bike ride home. Yeah.
Hello, John. Maybe he's not connected down.
Oh well, we got Johnny. I just saw John very very briefly there.
Hiya.
Hello, John.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi.
Johnny.
How you doing?
Okay,
Sorry.
well,
Yeah, just to be a bit late and
don't
yeah.
worry.
Hello.
We're just getting going. Have you got a video? Do you want to see your face or not? Or yeah.
I'm trying to get it to work actually, but
Okay.
maybe it will. Maybe it will.
Yeah. No worries.
Okay.
There you
There
go.
we go.
There you are.
How you doing,
You
John?
look like a sports
Fine. Hi,
commentator, John.
Clayton. I'm fine, thanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
reporting from the Pirates or wherever it is, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Apologies in advance, folks, because I've got another work thing. I've only got about 25 minutes or so.
That's fun. It's great that you
Uh,
can be with us.
yeah. But
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try to get through as many as we can. Well, now that you guys are all here, this will be a question for all of you, but and in general, but specifically to this album, Hey Panda, what's the process of the band working together? Who contributes what, and to make that into a finished song?
It's a very easy answer. There's very little process with of the band on this record because it's a very different record made in a very different way to a lot of the previous records. So for instance, my input was a day or two
2 days.
recording, yeah, a few bits and bobs,
Yeah.
recording, organic percussion and things like that we can spin in with the electronic elements. So, but compared to what it would have been on on one of the earlier records, it's a very different thing. I feel like you know, we've already with the new record out, in what we've sort of done and rehearsed live, I feel like we've already kind of done more to shape, you know, the whatever it is we're doing with it live than I feel like I did on the record, because that was so long ago as well that I can barely remember what we did. You know, it
Well,
was
no,
like
you did actually. You did a lot actually. You probably don't remember because
yeah. I mean,
I remember it. I remember it really well. And obviously, it was 2 days, and there were like very specific. Like you played all the written drum tracks on everything, and then I was like, I did a lot of work after that, and but like there's like Stone Cold Slow, Sisters, um even Panda, um there's very structured drum parts. You probably, because I was just throwing it at you very very fast.
well, I wouldn't see. I wouldn't remember which song it was or what title from if I remember back, because exactly you were
No,
throwing things so quickly that we were just
yeah,
going bing bong bing.
yeah,
Let's move to this. Let's move
yeah,
to this. Move to this.
and a lot of clapping,
A
don't you
lot of
remember that?
clapping. Yeah, that's right. I remember that
We
now.
brought in we had 5 pairs of hands to get that clapping in. So yeah. John was, and then when it moved to the kind of home studio, John came in then. If you want to talk about that, Johnny.
You're muted.
John. Okay. Am I muted? No. John
John is
is
muted.
muted.
There you go.
Wow, see, my
Yes.
brain is proved up to the challenge in the end. That's good. Uh, yeah, no, I think Sean sent me some sketches of ideas a long time ago, probably in the early stages of writing the album. Sketches of bass ideas, really tiny fragments of music. So I had, I guess, an idea of the ballpark a long time ago, and that ballpark was bass-wise very processed stuff. And this of the Llamas records, this is the most this is the most band coming in, other musicians coming in afterwards to add stuff, to add ideas and to play parts, probably, that we've ever done. And as much as anything, that's about the circumstances that it was made in, because it's like it's 5 years, 6 years since the last record, and
8 years. I mean, since
eight. Wow, whoa.
yeah.
And so,
Rattling Trees, 8 years.
right, and so that means that people are probably, more than any time in the history of where we've been playing together, we're fragmented. People are geographically all over the place, because like in 8 years, and then we've been through 2 lockdowns, and also in terms of I think everybody's always known that this was a thing that they were always going to do, as long as as long as everybody wanted to. But in terms of the other things that people are doing, other projects, people have moved on, I guess in headspace, really, as well as geographically. So it would have been, there's no way we would have ever been able to make a record in the way that we did 15 years ago, of going into a rehearsal studio and rehearsing bits together and then recording. Is that about how it feels for you, Sean?
Yeah. Obviously, in between, I made Radom Calls, the solo record, and Radom Calls was a little bit of a journey towards Hey Panda. Basically, the difference between everything that's come before Panda and Panda is that, for me, I'd been listening to a lot of R&B for a while, but really kind of shying away from it, I was worried about being appropriating something that I didn't feel I had kind of the license to sort of participate in. And that changed for me. A number of things changed for me. I met a guy called Ben Garrett from Friars, and I was working on his record, and I learned an awful lot in the studio with him. And I also learned that that kind of pop R&B, which I was very thankful for, because I thought it had come along it for me. It had over the last 20 years, it has kind of saved me a little bit from, because I was getting really I was questioning the role that the band had and that I had in music, and I was really kind of confused, and suddenly a whole bunch of young players, whether it's Tyler or Anderson .Paak or any of those people, or Kajabone, they brought something back, certainly for me. And so the beginning of Panda was basically completely set against that new joyfulness that I was beginning to sort of feel in music again.
Okay. Yeah, and that kind of segues into my next question, which is, how much, for example, on Tullahomey Way, I remember you mentioned that Rob had suggested, putting a more accessible kind of song on the album, so that kind of led to Fly Baby Fly, which is sort of kind of like a maybe trying to get sort of kind of radio friendly song with this new album. Did this be a question for Rob or any of you, but did that thinking sort of inform your approach with this record of feeling like this might be the last Hey Llamas record, and seeing if you could create something more I don't want to say commercial, but more accessible, or getting a lot more of the modern pop textures on there?
It's interesting.
Rob?
I mean,
Yeah.
when I first heard the songs and a lot of the ideas, I kind of thought the opposite. I thought, well, this isn't going to be. It's in some ways it's less commercial, because if you're talking about commerciality, you mean it means, I guess it's still to some extent, it means radio play, or TikTok even, whatever. But I thought, well, you know what, our radio, I couldn't imagine anyone putting a lot like these kind of things on the radio any more than I could of the last Llamas record or the one before that, but just in a different way. I didn't think it was any more commercial. What I did think was, it's definitely the way to go. As soon as Sean started playing me the first few ideas, I said to him, I think we were in that room, the room you're in now, Sean, and I said, this is the way to go. This is absolutely great. This is very exciting, and I feel it. But I don't think there was any sort of feeling that we were going to get any more media coverage or anything like that out of it, particularly. I don't think, anyway. I think if that's happened, it's probably more likely because of it's been such a change, and also because if you go away for a long time and come back, you always get more interest as well, so. But I don't feel there's any.
The fact it was still here, and we've done this record, has actually, it's almost like browbeaten people, and they've just said, you didn't go away, and now you've come back, and you've completely changed the rules of engagement for the High Llamas and its audience. And for the first time in a long time, the response has been, oh wow, oh, you can do that. And the other thing, but I do believe that after you heard those initial tracks, Rob, the end process went through such changes, and then it went through Friars as well. And I think
Yeah.
that Ben brought a commercial sound to it at the end. I mean, that sound is very much, I think, to do with how we mixed it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the palette that's there, and some of that language, yeah, definitely works. It definitely works. So let's say we get a little bit of airplay on BBC Radio 6, which over here is a kind of, it's meant to be a music lovers sort of niche station to some extent, but it's a national radio station, right? And we have got some play on that. And actually, when you hear it in context with everything, it does make a lot of sense. But I think also one of the reasons is that because there aren't any rules anymore either. You know, it seems like the rule book's been sort of ripped up for everybody. You know, if you listen to how young people listen to music and how they engage with it, there aren't any rules. They don't care if they're listening to Loyal Kana one day, Fleetwood Mac the next day, Mac DeMarco the day after that. They don't care what it is they're listening to. They just listen to anything.
There's no politics.
Yeah.
When I say
No.
politics, I mean there's plenty of good politics, but there's no politics as in you cannot listen to this. That's absolutely true.
Oh yeah, like
I
the tribes. Like we had tribes,
Yeah.
didn't we, when we were younger? You know.
Totally. Clay, I just put you in the picture a little bit because Clayton's really quite important in this, because I've one way or another been speaking to Clayton for a long time, and Clayton actually pointed out a very, very long time ago that there was a kind of interest in the High Llamas music, certainly in the US, outside what we thought our audience was. And he said like in parts of the R&B community, people were listening to the High Llamas. I had no idea that was the case, but Clayton actually sort of let me know that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
It totally makes sense if you listen to you could sample and rip loads of bits off the llamas. I mean, I was thinking about that recently and thinking there's still like literally hundreds of snippets you could take and make whole great tracks out of, and some little melodic or harmonic ideas that might just seem like a 3 seconds on a Llamas track, but you could actually build an entire song completely out of it.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about some of them the other day and thinking someone really should do that. One of us lot should probably do it, but it won't be. Probably someone else will do it at some point.
But even from a writing point of view, if you listen to kind of like the last Little Yachty record or something, I mean, that's one thing that's happening in hip hop and R&B. There's like so many kind of departures. I mean, the Little Yachty record could be a Todd Rundgren record. I mean, it's just like completely Cisco Swank, just really, really beautifully crafted sort of songs coming from, for me, relatively new artists. And maybe listening to kind of the way various bands have sort of put records together has helped that. Maybe the High Llamas have helped that a little bit, and if they have, I'd be absolutely delighted.
Well, it's a brilliant progression, for it all round. I mean, what's going on, I think, in the scene is just, it's fascinating. There's so many people making so much interesting music. I mean, obviously, there's also a whole load of people making landfill music on Spotify as well. So you've got that too. But if you can get over that, yeah, I mean, it's probably never been better for sort of creativity because the rule book's torn. So no one minds what they mash together anymore. So someone, especially with a very good record collection like Sean's, you've got. I remember going that we were around yours at a party once, Sean, at yours, and we'd been somewhere or something, and my mate Paul Cass was round, and you'd played some record or other, and he couldn't believe you were playing some kind of, what was it, like some kind of mid-70s I suppose MOR type thing, and he said, "Oh, I suppose you'll be playing Lido next, and you went, oh, hang
Mm.
on a minute, and you went and got the vinyl. You went and got the
Yeah,
vinyl and put it on.
yeah. But you know, that
But
would be
but
hip as
nowadays,
hell now. That's
yeah,
just
but
like, oh yeah,
nowadays,
Lido
exactly,
Shuffle.
it's
Yeah, it
hip as
makes perfect
hell.
sense.
You,
I mean, it
you
sounds
know,
like it would be. Yeah, I mean, tennis would make a song like Lido Shuffle, and nobody would. What do you think, Clayton? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, my entry into the High Llamas was through Pharrell talking about Stereolab, and then
Mm,
I actually started listening to Stereolab on Rhapsody, which was an early streaming service,
mm.
and it said related artists, the High Llamas, and listened to Can or a Cold and Bouncy, and then just fell deep. Um,
wow.
and then actually through the High Llamas, I started listening to Pet Sounds because I used to hate the Beach Boys. I just didn't care for their
Mm.
sound. Then got obsessed with Pet Sounds, and so there's Pet Sounds. Stereo Lab is one of the most is actually frequently sampled by a lot of prominent hip hop artists. So there, and then you have Tyler talking about High Llamas. I think you probably have had more of an influence in terms of the hip hop and R&B scene probably than maybe it's just people aren't talking about it enough. But yeah, I
Yeah, it's nice to know.
I wanted to know, you know, how did you approach wanting to make an album that would satisfy long-term fans, but also innovate as artists, or is that not something that is kind of top of your mind going in?
Well, certainly, it was on my mind, and I just had to forget it because if you start to think that way, you're not going to make the record, and you're not going to. And it was really important to make that record, to make the instinctive record. I think I have to say, for me, having cancer was a very big part of it because when you're, as you know yourself, Clayton, when you're going through all of that, you don't know what is on the other side. You don't know whether there's a full life or whether there's a life which is compromised. I don't know, and you can't even imagine being in the studio and doing any of that. When you actually think what it takes to either be on tour or to make a record, to haul all of that together and then get it out there. When you're sort of sitting there and you're at your lowest and you just think, I can't even imagine. It's like pushing a planet. And but the very fact that you find yourself sort of through the other side, then you just think, right, this record will absolutely be the record that maybe should have been made a long time ago. And that's where I forgot all about the idea of, is this appropriation? Is this right? And is this stupid? A guy, I would have been 61, 62 at the time. Rob and John would have been in their sort of mid 50s. Is this all kind of crazy or not? And no, you just do it. And the thought that your audience might have difficulty is something that I just had to shelve that. And guess what? It's great because people have been so good. People have really come to it.
I think it's worked really well on two levels because it's unmistakably um, Sean's chords and melody ideas and harmonic ideas all there. So that's in that way that's not changed because that's just the way it comes out. But the rest of it has changed enormously. And so any of the old fans, I could imagine like when it came out, some people sitting there going, hang on a minute, this is a kind of melody or a little idea that I recognize, but I don't recognize the rest of it. Oh my God, what is this? What is this newfangled? And but of course they go along with it because of what's already there, the history, the melodies that are inherent in kind of Sean's writing, it's already there. So they're dragged along whether they like it or not. And of course, we knew, as you do as a musician, generally, if you trust your instincts and you make the record that you want to make, people do go with you. You know, most people will come with you because, you know, as we all know, people are just people. They're not daft. You know, they'll come. And so yeah, when I first heard it, I was having a little chuckle to myself, but thought there'll be no problem. And Sean's right. There's not really been. You know, I think I saw one person making a comment that it wasn't really. They didn't like it because of the auto tune on the voice, which I just thought, if that's enough to put you off something, then fair enough. Maybe it's okay to, you know,
Yeah.
to go and listen to whatever it is you like. You know, but yeah, it's not enough to put me off. Put it that way.
John.
I'm gonna. Sorry, I'm going to
Oh.
grab Liv, and see if Livy's in, because she's kind of on the record, and you know, sorry, you just speak, John.
Yeah,
I'm just
grab.
going.
No, sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether Sean or Rob will agree with me on this, but I think bringing the audience, but the High Llamas audience with the High Llamas, it's never been in the top three things throughout the whole history. It's never been in the top three things of priorities. I mean, it's not, you know, it'd be crazy to say it wasn't important, but I mean, if you think back to the first record, if you think back to Gideon Gay, and you know, it had a song called Checking In on it, and at that point in time, there was definitely, you know, the High Llamas was involved with like major record company interest and blah blah, all that. I won't go into that because it's incredibly dull now, like 50 years on. But the band, even at that point, never made another record like that. At that point, when that record came out and people heard Checking Out, the whole thing from the industry that was interested in the High Llamas was, wow, okay, just do that kind of thing, but scale it up, and this is going to be like enormous. And we definitely didn't. And what's happening now
We
is
scaled
the same
everything else
thing.
up instead. Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you're quite right. I mean, when that record came out, you know, there was one day when I went to see a record company, and they said, we're going to reissue it, but we're going to get Chris Thomas to reproduce it. So Chris Thomas, for us, was a producer that we all love, because he produced Roxy Music and all sorts of stuff. So many people. And I came in, I had a meeting with Chris Thomas, and I said to him, so you're going to reproduce it? Great. What's your ideas? What are you going to do? And he didn't. He said, I don't know. And I said, well, let's leave it alone then. And I went out. I just didn't know what are you going to do? And he said, I don't know.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's just like so funny. And you know, but Sony signed us on the strength of Checking In, Checking Out, because they thought that they had hit FM American heaven. And the first thing that we recorded was a thing called Crop Duster, which was 9 minutes long, and it was about a guy coming from America to advise on the building of the first underground in the UK. And it was just thumping pianos and banjos and funny choruses, and it was like madness. And I remember the guy
It was
from
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like a kind of prog mashup of like what we'd been doing, but like in a kind of almost sort of slightly country-esque manner.
Yeah,
They were confused as
all
hell
sorts
with
of stuff
that.
going on.
Still one of my favorites, actually, Crop Duster. Absolutely love it.
The long-term High Llamas fans, they expect to be challenged. I have to tell myself that, because it doesn't make any sense otherwise to be a long-term High Llamas fans. So people, I mean, if there's like a line that goes through it all, then it's melody
Yeah, it
and
is.
harmony. Okay, that's the
Yeah.
line through everything. So the people who are
Absolutely,
into
yeah.
it, that's probably the thing that they respond to most in music. But then obviously, not many of the records sound that similar. You know, like just the like you know, the vibe is quite different to a lot of the records. And by now, people who've been listening to it for 10 years or so, they must have come to expect that it's going to be different. So, you know, it's a good place to be in, I think, because the people who like it, they possibly part of the reason that they like it is they expect to be challenged a bit. And that means that the people who do come out to gigs, I think we've got to assume that they're really into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Question for all that I've wondered. Is that I know Sean and John, you were both in Micro Disney, but how did you guys meet, and how did you know these are guys I want to make music with, I want to make records with?
Well, that was
John,
that was a really
you answer
different
that.
time.
Yeah. So
Sorry,
long
Sean,
ago.
you go ahead.
No. I think you should answer that. You should speak about this.
Well, it was a really different time, I guess. And I mean, gosh, like, say I was probably 22 and I'd been in London from Manchester. I'd been in London for about a month and I had no job. And I was living in a squat with some lovely people. Um, and my life was crazy. I think, and I had no idea what I was going to do. And there's a man called Richard Boone who's a bit of a legend in the UK indie music era from that time because he managed the Buzzcocks, and he was working for Rough Trade. And Sean and Carl were looking for a bass player. It was very as simple as that. They'd been in London for a very short period of time. They'd made an album, almost finished an album, I think, and they wanted musicians to gig it, and it was just one of those very, very lucky things where we were introduced and kind of got on okay. And to be fair, I think they were pretty desperate, and and uh, and then I heard the record and thought the Micro Disney everybody is fantastic record. I thought I can't believe that anybody's making a record like this. And so I was kind of hooked at that point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't believe it when I heard it as well, you know.
The thing to remember about that time, Clayton, is it was London in the early 80s, and you'll know about Rough Trade Records. I mean, you're a historian of music, and you'll know how important Rough Trade has been over the years to independent music. And it was very much kind of centered around Rough Trade and the people at Rough Trade, and the whole sort of little kind of ecosystem that they created for small very English in independent music. The John had come down from Manchester, and John was you were very much part of that. You were in a band called the Gay Animals, and you were like it was very Manchester. It was very kind of mustn't grumble indie music, kind of like kind of the there was a kind of a kind of a funny hopelessness about everything, wasn't there, Johnny?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was mirrored by my own total lack of knowing what what was going to happen. Yeah, at that point in time, I knew what kind of music I liked. Actually, one of the really interesting things was I think probably about meeting Sean and Carl at that time was that there were certain things that we listened to in common. But all of those things, like, I mean, I was a big fan of the Beach Boys at that point in time, which is, but all of the things that I was vaguely into, they knew so much more and had so many more records than I did. And that cemented the kind of link, really. I mean, you know, and there was such a range of things. And part of it was R&B at that time as well, but and other things was country as well. Like Cole had a massive interest in collection of country music,
Yeah.
and so you know, I knew we related to the same kind of things, but I learned a lot just by being exposed to all this stuff.
We didn't know Rob at the time. This is the early 80s. But Rob sort of kind of came into the kind of towards the end of Micro Disney, I guess, certainly, and right at the beginning of he came in, sort of floated into the orbit,
into the
prototype,
version of what became the Llamas. Yeah, I was playing in a band. I was playing in a band called Slab at the time, which were kind of like, some people would describe them as industrial funk, but they were kind of noise, kind of industrial with some grooves and some samplers and stuff like that as well, which was all a little bit new at the time. And
they were ahead of the game.
Yeah, they were a bit, and it's unfortunate because for them it meant that they never really got anywhere, and all the bands that followed did. But
way before 9 Inch Nails or any of those people were doing it.
It was doing all that kind of thing, and they were really good. They were very good and really meant it, you know, genuine sort of artists, if you like. And so I was sort of doing that, and I was playing in various other indie bands at the time, you know, like 80s, you know, indie sort of music. And we were rehearsing, I think, at the kind of more or less the same studios a lot of the time in North London.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how we first met you.
Yeah, and
whether
someone
it was
must
through
have said,
Solid Light, or whether it was.
Yeah, I think it was from the rehearsal place we used to play at, and someone said, "Oh, you know, this guy plays drums, he's pretty good, you know, and he'd be up for turning up." And I think I actually went down to Sean's. I was working part
You were
time
driving
as
a
a
van.
delivery driver. Yeah, and I came down and I had some ice cream. Yeah, I had some organic ice cream, and I brought it around to Sean's. I said, "Do you like ice cream?" And he just said, "No." And I went, "Oh, all right. He's going to be tricky."
Really, I tell you what's particularly interesting about that, Rod. That is my first. That's the first time I ever heard of anybody eating whole food or delivering it. I mean, you know, I'd never heard of that before, and now that, of course, that's like as a.
Yeah, you can buy it in any supermarket anywhere. Yeah,
I remember the thing that because even that you're a big Smiths fan, but and
oh yeah, that's true.
Massive Smiths fan, yeah. And I was like, I know, I think I was saying, I'm pissed off with the Smiths because we were on rough trade with them, and they were like, we were always basically kicked out. It's almost like the Smiths are coming into the room, we're kicking you out, or whatever. Right to the point that we actually kind of box their records for them. You know, it's just like, so I wasn't. I go, Smiths. I'm not interested.
Yeah, even that's fair enough. It was fair enough.
Yeah. And Marcus came in, Clayton, in a very odd way. So Marcus is the fourth member, and the kind of the other sort of pillar, shall we say. And I was building Marcus's mother's wall with his brother. His brother was the bricklayer, and I was mixing the cement. And Marcus wandered up in a long coat and a beret, and looked at me and said, and Mac, and said nothing. And Max said, "This is my brother Marcus." And I said, "Oh wow!" And he goes, "Yeah, Sean. Yeah, he's a musician, plays in." And I said, "Yeah, actually, I am. Yeah." And well, Marcus is a musician, and I said, "You know, I'm looking for a keyboard player." And Marcus said, "Yes, that's me." And he turned up at rehearsal, and that was it. That was it.
It's incredible. Yeah. We came out with some. Yeah.
I was mixing cement.
Considering how we all sort of got together, we actually ended up, because we had Anita around at that time as well. So
Yeah.
over from America, and she was, you know, sort of a very different character again. And considering the different parts, we started to work on some pretty good material before we kind of, in that little pre-Llamas time, we
Mm,
were kind of rehearsing down at
mm,
this jazz club, you know, on a
yeah.
Sunday morning with
Mm,
hangovers or whatever. And so
yeah.
we were coming up with some of the early songs, and then it kind of, yeah, then I had to disappear off, go and have a lie down with
Yeah.
British folk
Really,
rocker Billy Bragg for a
yeah.
while.
Yeah.
I got a bit busy, unfortunately. So then when I came back,
So,
it was fully fledged Llama world then. So
so to go on to your question, Clayton, the actual kind of meeting, apart from, so John and I knew each other, but certainly Rob and Marcus, it wasn't like, oh, you know, through kind of studied London musical circles or the Cats getting together. Not at all. You know, Rob turns up with the ice cream, and and I turn up at Marcus's mum's house building a wall, and that's it. And until now, I've never thought of it like that, but it's actually quite absurdist, really.
here we are 30 odd years later, you know, still
Mm,
still doing it.
mm.
Well, while we still have John, I want to get into one of the questions from our members, which is, which High Llama album is the individual band's members' favorites? And then also, what's the story with Dominic and Pete? Might they play with the band again in the future?
Well, for me, it's Snowbug.
Me too. Me too. I love Snowbug the most, I think.
Okay, even if I'd agreed with that, then I wouldn't say it now because obviously, kind of three people saying the same. I think Beat Maize and Corn is probably my favorite, actually.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's the string stuff on Beat Maize and Corn, string
Okay,
textures.
okay. Can I say a close second for me? Close second for me is Tullahomey Way. If I'm discounting Panda at the moment because we've got we if we say jury's out on Panda for the minute, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd like maybe Panda, but if non-Panda records, it would be those two, Snowbug and Tullahomey.
Is there a reason?
What else is on Tullahomey Way? Because my memory is terrible. Like I get
Well,
confused
Barry
between that.
Adams,
Oh, right. Yeah.
Woven and yeah. Okay, so Snowbug because I really love the sound. And we had some great people working on it. John McIntyre mixed that record in America. I really love it was like, even when back then, I remember a few really interesting things. Like I was listening to it was late 90s, and I was listening to the Ethiopian stuff that's, you know, a lot of people like, and I was really really taken by it, and taken by those funny little organs and those funny time signatures, and the triplets against the 4/4 time. And I was like coming into the studio and saying, changing things. I remember saying, oh, I had an idea last night. And also the like things like the American scene. If you listen to the American scene, I think it wasn't much. I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, obviously Stereolab was sort of banging away with that sort of sound, but I think we did it in a very very unusual way. That sort of cutting up sound and going really dry and funky. I remember going dry, 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 funky, 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 funky. It was the first record where the nylon string really started to pop out. It was the record where we did lots of nice things with processing the marimbas so they sounded like steel drums. And it was and also I love the piano because I put tax in the piano. So if you think of things like American Scene and Harper's Romo, you know, those for me achieved textures that I didn't hear any other band do. And I thought, yes, when you do that, you go, yeah.
The textures on that whole album are, for me, like all very interesting. That whole record, even like the entire sort of mastering or whatever, it somehow is got its own sound.
Yeah,
It
and the
doesn't.
drumming's
It like sonically, it's just very different.
Drumming's really funky on that. I mean, it was like, I mean, there's moments like that where it sounds like Shuggy Otis, I think, you know, and I was just like, yes, and it was kind of, we'd been through, you know, records where we were piling harmonies and thick strings and thick everything, and then we said, yeah, we're going to have strings, but it's going to be small. We're going to have tenors, but they're going to be honking like they're like on an Ethiopian record, and we're going to have drums, but they're going to be loose and funky, and you know, it really, and you know, I remember walking away from that record and thinking, yeah, that's the record that we should have been making. I was really happy with it, and we mixed it in America. Clayton, by the way, we mixed it in the States.
We actually had to re-record quite a few of the separate individual tracks, the stems, because the master tapes got sent over to the studio, which is Steve Albini's studio in Chicago. But the courier driver, the delivery driver, stole the tapes, and
the delivery driver turned
came,
out to be a heroin addict.
And he never came back to work. So we literally had to wait there while luckily the London record company had copies of the masters, but they had a load of tracks missing. So the machine that they'd used to copy them was missing 3 or 4 channels. So we had to go in and go, okay, what did we even do, and make it up again and re-record in there. So not only were we trying to mix, we were trying to re-record the bits that we'd lost as well. So it was all a bit mad as well. It was very exciting. And then Steve Albini popping his head in was also quite a different thing for us, you know, making a Llamas record. You wouldn't really associate someone like Steve Albini with our kind of music. So actually it was good getting him listening to a few bits and him getting excited about mastering it onto a 1/4 inch. Do you remember he came in one day and he was talking about like trying to get tape compression, and we mastered something onto a 1/4 inch tape to try and get it to really sparkle, and I'm not sure if we actually used it in the end, but
yeah, he was wonderful, Steve was, and he was a lovely man, and we loved being hosted by him, and I think he liked having us in the building. It was really nice.
That was an amazing experience, wasn't it? Working at Electrical Audio, there was so much input from being in that studio, and from John as well into how the record turned out sounding. To be honest, actually, I think if we were going to go to like, what's your favorite? The song that I'd most like to play of the entire Llamas catalogue that we've never done live, I don't think we're pretty sure we haven't. We might have tried to rehearse it once. Is Green Coaster. That would be my favorite thing, that's on that record, isn't it? Green Coaster's on that. I think that might be my favorite song if somebody, you know, made me.
Yeah. So the other part of your question, Clayton, is Dom and Pete. Do you think they'll be in the playing in the band again? So to answer that as directly as possible, we didn't know whether the band would actually be making a record or be playing again. None of us knew that. It was like not something that was ever talked about, and it wasn't really. And what's happened now is that the record was made, and we didn't even talk about playing live. But what we did was we were offered a really high profile BBC session, and we did it, and it was great, and it was good fun. And so then after that, they said, okay, you're going to launch the record at Rough Trade. And we thought, well, let's get together and play some songs at Rough Trade. And we did that. And now that we've done two kind of little shows together, we actually managed to play 3 songs from Panda. We've said that's it, we can do this, and so now the plans are to get out. And so we've sort of planned for October to play some shows. Now at the moment it's just the 4 of us because that's how we can do it. And we'll probably have 2 women with us on all shows one way or another, because we actually want that to be another aspect of the band. So that's what we know now, and I can't tell you any more than that right now.
Okay. Well, we still have John. Wanted to ask a question for all of you, kind of a general question, but what's been your greatest lesson in your career as a professional musician? What's been the greatest lesson you've learned?
I know what that is, but I won't. I'll let Rob answer first.
Well, I think the first thing is keep turning up, right? That's probably the one of the main things. But on the personal level, I used to work with a guy. I used to work for the place called the National Jazz Centre in London, which was like it was a jazz college kind of thing in a way. And I used to work with a guy called John Stevens, who was a free jazz drummer, quite sort of famous in the free jazz world in the UK. And he's dead now, sadly. A bit of a maniac, but I liked him. And we used to work together quite a lot. And we were sitting around one day in a group of musicians, some of them confident, some of them not confident. And he was just going around and he's saying, right, everyone's just going to play something or sing something or do something, and one of the people, one of the guys was a bit timid, and he was saying, "Oh, I don't think I can do something." And John said, "Well, look, don't worry about it. Don't worry. Just play something impressive, And if you can't play something impressive, play something that sounds fucking impressive." And everyone started laughing, and actually that really informed. Okay, hang on a minute. If you don't have the chops, or you don't want to have the chops or whatever it is, you can still do something impressive in music. That's what he meant, play something that sounds
Totally.
impressive. It doesn't mean you're pulling the wool over anyone's eyes. It means you're literally doing what he just said. And that was the most simple essence of a musical lesson that I ever learned, I'd say. That's probably the one thing. And thank you, John, for that, because it was also incredibly funny, but brilliant.
The other thing John said, and this is like this 2 John Stevens lessons, was he said to you, when you're trying to work out a beat, and this can apply to anybody, whether it's a tenor player or a whatever, and you're trying to process the piece of music, the first thing you should do is sing it, whatever it is. So you're learning a piece of music, and a lot of people will say okay, and they'll listen, and then they'll falter on the piano or falter or whatever. But the first thing you should do before you do anything is sing it, because once you sing it, it gets inside your body. You've internalized it, and that's a beat. So you hear a beat and you go, what is it? And you're going, it's okay, listening and saying, it's this, it's dum a dicka a dum a dicka a dum a dicka a dum a dicka. And once you've done that, it's inside your body. And I think John said that to you, which I thought was a good one.
Yeah, that's right. It was something like, if you can't sing it, if you can't say it, you won't be able to play it, or it's going to take you twice as long, 3 times as long. So you've got to be able to say it to play it. And it's like, okay, again, very, very simple and wise words from a incredible force of nature.
John, what's yours?
I've learned nothing. But okay, well, but actually, when I start thinking about it, that's what it feels like. but actually, you know, the most important thing. There's lots of musical things, I suppose, but probably the thing that's more important for me is that um, uh, music's playing with people and making music. At the end of the day, I suppose it's about people's personality, and all the things that were important to me and that were drives for me when I was younger, they're not really there anymore. So the only drive when you get into sort of, you've been doing for a long time and you're relatively getting on. The only time is just to ignore, did I say ignore? To enjoy each moment that you do it, because there's no point otherwise. There is literally no point unless you enjoy each moment. And I've not been the kind of person in general in life who has thought like that, you know. But I think that's the most important thing now. You know, make the most of the people that you're with and enjoy it, because you know, as we all know, everything could finish tomorrow. And
Indeed, yeah.
yeah.
On that
Guys,
point,
sorry,
I
I'm
would.
sorry. I've got to go.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I'll just say goodbye. Clayton, thanks very much for doing this. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your
Yeah, John,
time.
I was just going to ask you, do you have any upcoming collaborations or projects you're working on?
Um, music is by far the most important thing for me. So I work a long job during the day and have done for a long time. And the thing that keeps me sane is playing. And I play maybe 2 or 3 times a week now, but they're all tiny things, which is what I like doing. So I run a night at a bar in South London, and then I play a couple of other kind of clubs and things like that, and a range of music, kind of jazzy music, and with a large bunch of people, and none of that ever really. I don't have any aspiration to record it or anything like that. It's just what keeps me kind of sane, really. If that makes sense, yeah.
Lovely.
All right, well,
All
thank you,
right.
John.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Johnny.
Thanks a lot again. Bye, you guys. See you later.
Cheers, John.
Yeah.
A question that came up a lot among a lot of the members was around touring. So, I know you have some tour dates in the UK. Is there any plans or interest or ability to tour outside of the UK with this new album?
There would be desire and plans. I think there will probably be some European stuff. I think something will happen in France, and something will probably happen in Ireland, and maybe Germany, Norway, possibly. That's because that's possible. It used to be very, very possible when we were in the European Union. It's a little bit harder now, but it is possible. The reason why we haven't toured in the US for so long is because unless you sneak into the US without a visa, it's financially impossible to do it. Visa costs per musician to play in the US are something like $4,000. So that's before you even hit a cymbal, it's $16,000. And you know, that's before you get your flights and whatever, any of that stuff. So unless you can support it or make a loss, it's really hard to get to the US, which is it's a tragedy, because by far our biggest market is in America. And we would,
and historically we've really enjoyed touring in the US, you know, tons. I mean, that's a lot of my memories of Llama's extensive touring is all about being in the States, and it's a tragedy we can't.
Yeah,
It looks like we can't do it, you know.
The other place is Japan. They love us there, and we can, and they do offer us. They offer us a lot of money, and and it's easy, and they offer us the visas and everything, and it's dead easy. But getting into the US it's really, really difficult. And I would just like to tell the US audience that the reason why we haven't been there since 2004 isn't because we're being kind of, you know, we're lazy or whatever, any of that. It's nothing to do. It's just impossible because
it's literally a financial thing. We will lose a lot of money if we come over.
you
We just can't
you
afford it.
30 grand. You'd lose 30 grand basically, unless you got really great fees, and those fees would have to be like, you know, I don't know, Coachella type fees, you know, just to basically to kind of not lose money. And you know,
Yeah.
we haven't got a record company that will do that.
What
You know, there's
about
no.
like, Stereo Lab recently toured in the US, and is there someone asked like is there a possibility to join them, open for them, or is it this?
Sure, but I mean, we wouldn't get fees. We'd still get tiny fees. I mean, we could, but you'd still two things. Still need the visas, and then nobody's going to pay you. They're going to say you can open, but we're not going to give you much fees. They wouldn't be giving, you know. So I don't know.
We were trying to figure out the other day. Sorry, we were trying to figure out, weren't we, in your kitchen, if there was a way of doing it. And we thought, well, one thing we could do, we could maybe do some shows in Canada on the border and just invite all the
Yeah,
American audience to come over, because it's a lot easier for you to do that than it is for us to get into the country and play, because we can't afford
but,
to. So if we played just
but
over the border in Canada, maybe that's a way of doing it. Possibly, we
Canada is possible because because there's two things. First of all, there's no visa costs. It's like £100. Number one. Number two, in Canada, there's actually quite good public sponsorship for visiting bands, because we've got that relationship through British Council and all that lot. So it's quite possible, and there's actually quite a few. Like I know Toronto. A lot of people in Toronto would say, "Oh yeah, well, I think we could get you over," and I don't know about Vancouver. I think Montreal's the same. So weirdly, Canada is quite possible. It's just getting out, just getting
that's
into the US
that's
real
our
hard.
way of trying to figure out if we can do it or not, and that, we were thinking, oh, could we do the same in Mexico? Could we go and play in Tijuana or something,
Yeah,
and just get everyone to come down? But I don't know, it's a nightmare,
I
unfortunately.
know
But
you've
it's not
yeah,
because we don't want to. We really do want to.
I know you
so
wanted
hard.
at one point to get, the rights to Hawaii and do an album tour with that. So is there potential with that, getting the rights to your back catalog? And
Oh,
if you
me.
do, are there going to be re-releases of the old catalog?
Yeah, that's. By the way, Livy's just joined. Clayton, this is Liv.
Really?
Hiya.
Yeah, we have the rights for 5 years, Clayton, and we are in the process. That's happening. What's going to happen is there's going to be Hawaii and Gritty and Gay will be the first release, and then the second release will be Snowbug and Cold Bouncy. So that will be Drag City. They are going to make that happen, and maybe there will be a kind of a celebration and a festival of Llama, Lass, whatever, and somebody will just say, "We've got to make this happen." I mean, I think the best hope is that some major benefactor in America just says, "We need you here," and they basically look after everything and they just make it happen, which is quite
That's what I've been
possible.
hoping for. Yeah, I've been hoping that there's some, like Supertramp had their millionaire benefactor. Maybe there's someone who in the music business or whatever, or even or not, but who yeah, just wants to help out and just get us over. And if it and we'd be more than happy to do it. In fact, we would love to do it if there is someone
I
like that
know.
around. But hey,
Well, the closest we've got, I think, is there's somebody, the managing director of Legoland was he got in touch. And I said, "Come on, man."
I'm liking this already.
I feel like you could play on the animal theme for Legoland.
Absolutely, yeah.
Make it like slightly kid.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Livy, thanks for joining. What,
Livy's all over Hey Panda, so she's an honorary member of the band at this stage.
well,
And
yeah,
she's been on.
there was a question. So, one, how did that come about to get Livy to sing? And two, Livy, will you be writing and releasing any of your own music?
Yes. Okay. Hey Panda, how did I it doesn't like come about. I wouldn't say it's like, oh, it comes about that, we decide, oh, okay, Livy, come and sing on the album. It's just
Well, welcome.
I'm around. No, it started before with Radom Calls.
Yeah, right, yeah.
My first ever paid singing was age 7 on a Japanese Christmas song.
Yeah.
So we started young.
Yeah.
But the first kind of stuff that I did that then led to High Llamas was Radom Calls, so your solo album.
Yeah.
And
you did the show at Cafe Oto with that as well, because I was at that, which was excellent,
which was
I must say.
So amazing, and singing with Cahal for that was like one of the most special things. And
Wilder Welcome.
Then we kind of did the Wilder Welcome in the very beginning of lockdown, which was the first thing where, rather than just kind of being in the background, I was actually singing and kind of leading a song, I suppose.
Wish You Were Gay.
And then Bonnie Prince Billy and Will Oldham, Wish You Were Gay song, which I wasn't even meant to be on. I just did the scratch vocals to then be sent over, and we just kept it on because why not?
They liked
it and kept it. And then when Hey Panda's been written over the past few years, it's never been a like, will you do this? It's just kind of come in and sing, see how it sounds, see what works.
Come in, do this, please, please. Yeah.
And it's never been a let's go to the studio today and record things. It's just oh, come in, I've got a new idea, set up a mic, do it in this room, and see what ends up on the album and what.
I think we should mention Ray Morris at this stage as well. So the other singer is Ray Morris, who I made a record with Ray as well. She's married to Ben Friars, Ben Garrett. And her vocal on Sister's Friends is just incredible. And it that's another thing. I mean, and she is on Toria Fan. And just having those range of voices was, I mean, we've got Ray, we've got Liv, and we've got Bonnie Prince Billy, and those range of voices and Friars, having all those voices is just really shakes it up, and it really makes people feel that there's something different happening here. And
it puts a lot of little sparks, little musical sparks and explosions of sound, with those different voices. That's a main difference actually on this record.
Yeah, and I noticed there's very little use of strings or brass or woodwinds. It seems like there's a lot more reliance on vocals more than any other of your albums. Was that intentional?
Totally, Clayton. It was absolutely that there was no point going into this and saying and just doing what was always what okay, great strings here, great, whatever, it's so easy, we can just do it. And there's two small moments of strings, and they're literally bars, two bars, 3 bars here and there.
I mean, what you're listening to is so new, it's so different, that it would be so stupid to put a new album out and not bring some of that and not move on.
Fat synths. I got bang into fat synths, massive into fat synths, and cranky pianos and fat synths. That's what, and bass synths, and learning how to work with beats as well. And it was so fun, and and it wasn't like, oh wow, meticulously kind of studying it. It was all very, very quick. The writing, like some of those sounds that have defined a record ended up in the record really quickly, and then I just sat on it for ages. I mean, like there was I don't know, I mean, the process was so different. So it's funny that sorry
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's funny that when Rob was in the studio in those 2 days, and it was just like, it's a long time ago now, it's a few years ago, and all this stuff. I didn't really have the kind of order and the shape of things, but I had a little bit. And it was probably, I have to say that those 2 days were as kind of crazy as the Gideon Gay days. Like in 2 days,
Yeah.
out, you know, it was like the
Yeah.
Gideon Gay days. Madness, you know.
It was.
What
That's very true.
I wanted to, it kind of related to this. So there's a question from a member. The Will Oldham songs or Billy Prince at first feel like Will Oldham songs until I realized that for this album, the High Llamas had expanded their songwriting characteristic into a production characteristic, and then since anything really could be High Llamas as long as it had the fresh new production touch. To me, this brings the community inclusivity that previous albums may not have had. Is this observation anywhere close to being how the Llamas see it? And if so or not, what drove the decision to work with other songwriters here?
Well, it's very generous observation, and it's you know, I'm delighted that somebody would actually think that deeply about it and actually come to that conclusion. Will and I had been speaking about gospel music, and we our relationship goes way back to Palace, the Palace brothers, when Will came over to the UK and I played piano and sang. Rob played some drums on that record way back. Yeah. This is 25, 30 years ago. And then, you know, we've kind of kept in touch. And then over the, you know, a few years ago, Will and I were just talking about gospel music. And we were saying that A&R guys should be going to the churches because that's probably where the most interesting music might be happening at the moment. And because so many artists, you know, they say, where did you start? Well, I started in, you know, I mean, so many like Saber did. I think No Name said that, and we just talked about gospel, and then we said let's write, and so he sent me 2 sets of lyrics, and I said okay, I'm going to start with gospel. I'm just going to write really kind of instinctive little gospel things on the piano for these, and that's where it started, and then it kind of traveled and became a much more contemporary. The vocals were the ideas were sent over to Bonnie Prince Billy. I had the melodic ideas. I said this is the tune, but then he changed the tune here and there and just went right off on some things, which was fantastic. I tuned my vocal, and then Bonnie Prince Billy said, "Why aren't my vocals tuned?" And I said, "Because you're Bonnie Prince Billy, I'll get thrown out of the music business if I tune your vocals." And he went, "No, I want my vocals tuned." So I tuned his vocals as well, and bang, there we go.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, some people had asked about that. You know, speaking of voice, Sean, what's your relationship with your singing voice over the years? And is there a connection there with the stylistic choices that you have made with the sound of your vocals on Hey Panda?
Yeah, okay, so
Do you want to sit down?
You know, I'm okay.
You sure?
Yeah, I started in Micro Disney where I was paired up with one of the great singers in the last 50 years in England, Carl Coughlin. So to start singing your own songs with your reedy voice after being in a band with a powerful baritone is really tricky. So I've never had a great voice, and I kind of, but I liked treating it with in the Llamas. What we did was we had harmonies, and the voice, we always got unison vocals, and that was me and Marcus together with this very close unison, very male kind of sound, and that worked. And then we did that right the way through to Tullahomie Way. I think we're still doing it in Tullahomie Way. But on this record, I was I I wanted to embrace Curtis Mayfield big time, big time. I love Curtis Mayfield. The Making of You is one of my all-time favorite songs, and I just thought, you know something, I'm going to go right up there, and I thought I could do it, and I just tried it, and I love doing it now, and I'm singing up there, and and it's very vulnerable, and who cares, you know? I love
it's got to be done. It sounds
Yeah.
real. It sounds really good.
Yeah.
It's really effective because it touches people. When you hear someone, my sister said to me once, actually, and she's not a musician, but we were talking about singers, and we were talking about Peter Gabriel in particular, and she said that she liked Peter Gabriel because, not because she thought he was an amazing technical singer, but because he sounds like he's always really trying at the edge of his capabilities, you know. And I think there's some similarity when you're going for all that high stuff. It doesn't matter if it's fully, you know, if it's technically amazing, it just touches the listener. And, you know, and if you're going for it, people feel it, you know. I definitely I've learned that myself because I sing a bit here and there, and I've learned the same thing,
Rob's
not to fear it.
Rob's a terrific singer.
It makes me think a bit of Donald Fagen.
Yeah, Donald was never the greatest singer, and was always on the edge. But that kind of getting up there, and you know, it's something I've really enjoyed. Rob's a great singer. Rob, whenever he does an awful lot of covers for charity, in you know, maybe twice a year, and he's the main singer. He's the main man. Isn't that right?
Luckily, I've got away with it for quite a lot in the Llamas because I'm behind the drum set. I've not been asked to do too much, but the more we're doing, the more I'm getting roped in, you know. So, but yeah, it's I've got away with it quite well. What should be remembered?
Sorry, we sing communally sometimes. Sorry.
Oh yeah. I always bring this in. I love to mention this, but Marcus, you mentioned Marcus earlier, and his voice is, I think some people who, if you listen to the Llamas, I think some people can't necessarily discern what's Sean and what Marcus is at times, because often they're inextricably linked. They're almost the same thing. And actually Marcus is really, he's also the voice of a lot of that earlier Llamas stuff that you're hearing is massively him. And if you took him out of the equation, like say in a live scenario, so let's say he couldn't do it, he was having a lie down, it would sound so different. And and Marcus is really probably more important than people realize in terms of his input, especially with vocals.
Well, he sings on most things at some point.
So say something like oh, let me think of a really good example. The Painter's Paint or something like that. I think I think whenever there's unison vocals and it's kind of tracked, it will be me and Marcus really tight on it, and it's that sound, and it is that sound. It's kind of like the sound, it's a slightly embarrassing sound. It's not a rock and roll sound at all. It's like a sound that you kind of it's like your uncle's singing or something like that. And what I like about it is it's like so not Oasis. It's like Oasis is in your face. And when we did that sort of kind of restrained men singing close harmony, close unison, that there's something really it's slightly embarrassing. Fab. It's kind of
tilting windmills. That's a good one for that, isn't it? I think that might be a good example.
So someone asked, can you ask John about the role humor plays in his music and how it manifests itself? An example in my mind comes around the 2:10 mark of Fall Off the Mountain, when the song shifts suddenly from its disco-like groove into a very low-volume refrain of the initial melody, followed at the 212 mark by this ghost-like chord, parentheses, I crack up every time when I hear it.
Yeah, humor's very, very important.
No, you're not subject to the worst of it though.
Yeah,
because you don't get the dad jokes or the jokes that just never hit, just constantly, which Rob you get as well.
Yeah,
it's just, I mean, I would say you have quite a good hit rate,
yeah.
but you just tell so many jokes that quite often they just get lost in the middle of.
There's lots of humor, Clayton, because human drives us really. Rob's a very good mimic. He does, you know, if you mentioned somebody, I'm sure he can do a really good Biden. I'm sure he could. I'm sure he does a good Trump. But
I'm not gonna do it. I'm no chance.
Yeah. But Rob's very good at like classic English sort of actors and whatever. So and I love absurdity and so Fall Off the Mountain is that's about sheep. The song's about walkers. So I've got this thing, the people who walk in the hills, and I'm sure it's the same in the States when people sort of go out walking. So you're in, you're hiking, you get out, and there's something people feel really good about themselves. I've got out. I'm not drinking beer. I'm not watching TV. I'm hiking. I feel good about myself, and you're morally sort of yes. And then I quite like the idea that the animals are all watching the hikers and going, "You don't belong here. You think you're good. You're not that good, and you're gonna fall any minute. You're gonna fall." And so that's what it's about. It's about the sheep are kind of laughing at the hikers.
I don't think people realise quite how much I think you live in your own little world sometimes.
I do. Yeah. That's.
And I think that's what so much it comes out in so much music.
Yeah.
And I think we all do a bit.
Yeah.
But I think you live in your own crazy little world that I love. And we'll even get bits of with like the really bizarre stories you told us as children and the fun, nutty bedtime stories and the characters that would carry on for years and pop up in music and stuff like that. And I think
totally
you have a little world with so many different characters and so many different things. And
I like there's normally some animals included because I love that whole thing of the sort of the so-called kind of dumb animals just looking and I just love videos like that, of like, absurdly, cattle just looking at a bloke digging or something, like I just love this scene of like just wondering what the hell is going on in the animal's mind, but you always manage to slot an animal in there or two, It wouldn't be a Llamas record without one.
Well,
and
I mean that's kind of been there in other places. You got The Goat Looks On and The Ring of Gold about the horse, but this album especially is so much. It's almost like your pet sound.
Well, the animals. There's the panda, the sheep, the goat. Yeah, absolutely. The panda was very important because during lockdown, Liv and I watched this panda every single day in Carrots, and it was like what a king panda eating those carrots, and it made me very happy. And that's the song. It's just me basically saying, "Hey panda, I love you, and you help me."
Even some of what I write is animals.
Yeah. So Livvy's you've got one definite song recorded, which is called "Dog Like a King," and
lots of other things that I haven't put together yet, but are just sitting there.
Yeah. So it kind of.
But animals as well.
The thing about animals is I think it's quite arrogant of us to sort of say, well, we're the humans and they're the animals, and there's we kind of we're the boss. I really am aware of the comfort that animals bring to us, and that we share the planet. We share the planet with animals, and they're a very big part of. As an old man, I realise how important they are.
I'm just showing you my cat, but it's not. I don't think
Oh,
she's
Very
just it's
fussy,
a
but we
bit
can
blurry.
oh,
ouches and
So-
shit.
Oh.
yes.
And we have got a bit of a madhouse with 2 very characterful cats and a dog who
Yeah,
loves rehearsals because the
yeah,
whole living room just gets filled with people and he gets endless attention. So.
absolutely.
And so in the
Yeah, I love what you say about that though. That you know, humans thinking that they're the boss, and you just see these animals like looking at us, just like they don't give a shit. You know,
Yeah,
it's brilliant. I love it. I just love it.
in the past, so someone asked, in the past, albums have felt more overall conceptual with repeating themes, instrumental interstitials, and loose narratives implied. Is this album also conceptual? And I also noticed that this is the first High Llamas record, I think, ever or in a long time where there's no straightforward just instrumental tracks.
Very true. Okay, so the repetition of ideas in previous records and the segues was basically built from the idea of soundtracks, because I was so obsessed with soundtracks in the early 90s. I would listen to soundtracks so much, and the theme in a soundtrack would repeat, you know, in many different ways over and over, and sometimes snippets of the theme would just jump in and out, whatever. And I really, I was so fed up of the kind of the 80s, where when you think of what was happening at the end of the 80s and the early 90s, where kind of Seattle, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam were the big acts, and there was this kind of weight in music. There was a weight, and there was a kind of a balance and a force, which I found so boring. And I wanted to bring in splinters and segues and crossfades and confusion, but with melody. And I think that was from listening to lots of soundtracks, lots of 1960s and 70s B-movie Italian soundtracks. And so that's where that idea came from, and it survived a long time. It's not on Panda, and that's another thing of not going to do the same, not going to do it, going to do something different. And the fact that there isn't a instrumental track, there could have been, but no, there was always a vocal element that was going to happen there. And it was just, I don't know.
I just think that you had such a good time on the Funny Pages soundtrack for
Yeah.
Owen Klein before this, and you kind of wrote a full feature film soundtrack for a pretty major release, and it's amazing and pretty much instrumental the entire way through. And that kind of almost felt like you've had this love for soundtrack music your whole life, and you could finally put it all into something where you had so much creative freedom and so much creative direction, and you could almost write the soundtrack that you've always been putting in your albums up till now. And I don't know how much of that comes into it, but I think there's a little element of like, you've done it and you've made this incredible soundtrack, and now you can keep moving.
Yeah, I mean, there's always room for kind of instrumentals, and there will be instrumentals, and there will be. But I love the fact that there's
quite instrumental.
Yeah, there's a vocal element on Panda all the way, even if it's kind of, there's singing, there's shared singing, there's funny little raps, there's kind of robo raps, it's just funny and very communicative.
Yeah, speaking of the Funny Pages soundtrack, do you know, someone asked, will that ever be coming out officially on streaming or any platform or form?
Okay, as a soundtrack or as a film, I think the film might have actually hit the maybe it's out on streaming. I don't know. I think it might be. Soundtrack. Owen A24. That's A24's. They own it, and it's up to them if they want to do a deal. And they were talking to Fire Records, I believe, about doing a deal for the soundtrack, which would be incredible. But I'm not I haven't been informed of that, and I don't know where that stands. I can't tell you.
Someone asked, is there any chance a chord book or books might be made? And if so, would crowdfunding be something you would ever collectively approach to see this to fruition?
Charts of the songs. Yeah, well, it would probably cost a little bit of money to get that together. And yeah, that's an idea. Crowdfund that, and then we could find out how people want the chords, whether they want scores or whether they want tabs or charts. Yeah, that would be something if people could if people would be interested. Yeah, there's no reason why that can't happen.
Someone asked, is there consideration for another retrospective rarities and instrumentals volume? I from what I gathered, I thought that was more your previous label kind of did that when you're contracting.
Yeah.
Would this be something you might do for, the Drag City record?
Drag City might. So that would be one for Drag City. Yeah, there's certainly since retrospective, there's a lot of records. There's 5 records since the retrospective, so you could easily do a collection at this stage. Is that? Yeah, I mean, if that is something I would certainly talk to Drag City about and just say that somebody's asked this, and is this something that would be? I mean, I find it kind of, do retrospective records work these days, seeing as people have access to platforms and they can.
I was going to say that the question would be more like, is there a reason to do it? Because people can just stream all those tracks or find most of them. I doubt there's much recorded that is never made it onto a record or that isn't out in somewhere down the line.
Well, I think part of the question was, especially more the rarities side about.
Yeah.
There's
rarities,
some, like, buried
yeah.
requests and stuff like that aren't on streaming. So
okay, there's probably stuff. I would say that there is bits out there. There's probably stuff that maybe when I can. There's probably bits and pieces that nobody's heard. There's certainly tracks that didn't make the record. They didn't make the records. Going back over the years, there's probably an album's worth of tracks that never made the record. Certainly since Beat Mason Corn. Yeah.
So someone asked, Sean, you're on record as saying that you found writing lyrics difficult when you began songwriting post Micro Disney. Do you still find writing lyrics more difficult than composing music? And how do you approach lyric writing?
Yeah, it's difficult. They're definitely the harder of the two because it's not natural for me. How do I approach it? I used to I used to have a rule, and that would be very, very impersonal. Do not refer to yourself. Do not refer to the personal. Always create a third party and create a storyboard. So that was a rule that went right way through, right Snowbug, like Beat Maize and Corn. But I kind of changed things around a little bit. Certainly for Here Come the Rattling Trees was a theatre piece anyway. So the lyric came out of the theatre piece. And then on Panda is the first time I was very personal. So there's 3 tracks that are about dyslexia and about not being able to learn properly, and about being terrible at school, about being a slow reader, and about my obsession with the fact that the winners in academia basically write the history. So the winners in academia go out and they set up the world, and they make the world in their image. And so if you're not academic, you're catching up, always struggling. So there's 3 songs about that. Torreofan is The Water Moves and Stone Cold Slow. They're about that. And then the other 3 big ones are the animal songs, about our friends the animals. So those songs are, it's me getting really kind of deep and personal, I guess. And so the lyrics are different because they really are brought up from a very personal place.
Yeah, because I know the last time I interviewed, you said you didn't want to do anything personal. You didn't feel you had the right to do that. But was it basically cancer that changed that for you?
Yeah, all of that. Totally. That changes everything. Yeah. And
I think as you get older, as everyone gets older as well, you have a less of a can give a fuck attitude. I think as you get older, like you start to just realize that, well, you know, what actually really matters and what doesn't. And so I think naturally you'd go that way anyway. It's just going to be always going to be accelerated by any kind of major trauma, and obviously something mortal, especially. Yeah, but I kind of feel the same way. I like I said in a way about how what I heard straight away on this new record affected me was like, this is the way to go, because it's immediately just it clearly feels like it's doing something different and real, and if that's lyrical, then it's lyrical. If it's musical, it's musical. But I think as you get older, as people get older, they kind of feel that anyway. I mean, I notice with a lot of postmenopausal women especially, really just go, hang on, I don't now I am the authentic version of who I am, and I don't care who knows about it. And I wish that I knew about that more when I was younger. I wish I knew about that, and I wish that kind of thing was taught as well. I'm slightly going off piste, but I'm just talking about age in general and how it affects people. And, I find that it's actually can be quite a positive thing. There's obviously the negative side. Physically, we all start bloody decaying and feeling terrible. But mentally, sometimes it can actually free you up to become a kind of more the thing that you were looking for, or have been searching around for, or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Would someone ask, would you be willing to document the meaning behind each of your songs for the fans via interview or write-ups of some kind, or do you prefer that most of it remains shrouded in mystery? And I think probably Hey Panda is a little more straightforward, but in the past, I mean, that would probably be kind of an undertaking for your entire discussion.
That would be an interesting thing to go through every song and then sit down and just say, what was all that about? And I would probably be able to locate it. I'd probably, see, I know what I was thinking about then. I was and it's kind of all over the place. There's an awful lot of industry in there as well. I forklift trucks and supply chains figure a big in my songs, because I don't know, I love industry. I love industry, and I love the process of industry, and buildings figure, structures figure. But I could probably go to every song and say, I know what was going on there. I could do that probably.
Well, this kind of goes back to the re-release, and someone asks, will there be any reprint of early albums on vinyl or re-releases of the back catalog, and any possibility of official release of live recordings from previous performances?
Well, yeah, I mean, Gideon Gay Hawaii will happen. Golden Bouncy will, and Snowbug will happen. And right at the end, I think Santa Barbara will happen right at the end. But that's the intention was I didn't want to release that as the first record because I don't want to do a reissue and start with Santa Barbara. That would just be wrong. That would give everybody the wrong idea. Because Santa Barbara was a different band in my as far as you know, it was us. It was Rob, me, Marcus, and John. But the whole kind of ethic was very different. I think the modern band started with Gideon Gay, and so it would be you know, it has to start again with Gideon Gay, in my respect. I don't know what you think about that, Rob, but I think it's
Yeah, I agree. Santa Barbara was kind of um a sort of bridge, a stepping stone kind of thing. I don't really know
yeah,
how to describe it. I mean, it's great, you know, I still enjoy it. I love the kind of aggression in like not the it's not the right word, but it's kind of when you're pushing your vocal on Santa Barbara like that, kind of you feel a real sort of yeah, almost an aggression, a strength in that vocal. It's very interesting listening back to those recordings when you were really pushing your singing, but it's nothing like the High
yeah,
Llamas as a kind of concept and as a kind
concept.
of,
No,
if you like, an artful concept. That definitely started with Gideon completely.
yeah.
And is there, kind of related to that, is there any possibility of getting official merchandise?
We have to get it made. Those maybe when we go touring, we'll get some merchandise together, and it'll probably be, I don't know what it might be. Well, it'll be, we could get some beautiful merchandise for Panda because it's so kind of, it's a gift. I think there was a talk of knitting some Hey Panda gloves and Hey Panda hats. But I don't know.
Maybe
Yeah,
when we meet that millionaire benefactor,
yeah.
he'll help us to sort something out, and
The thing
he
about
come to the
merch is,
States.
yeah, you have to make sure that you've got a run of 500 before you can, you know, do it and not lose money. But I'm sure if we got merch together, we could sell it online. I'm sure we could do it if there's people out there. I've got no idea how big the audience is at the moment. No idea.
No,
No idea.
nor I've got no idea. It's really hard to know. There's no real way of knowing.
We've got about 900 members in our group now, so it's probably a bit larger than that. But I know that's been a struggle for you because you've been trying to book gigs and they often base it on, you know, Spotify followers. But
Yeah.
I know that a lot
Yeah.
of your fans, at least a lot of the fans in the group, are very anti-streaming, and so they
Yeah.
don't even bother signing up or following. But like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how has that been to navigate?
That's hard. I mean, that's how the business is. They look at your numbers. They look at your analytics, and if your analytics don't show, you know, hefty numbers, they you know, they either aren't interested or they make offers based on your analytics. That's how the music business is at the moment. And
Yeah.
you can't actually
Yeah, so
say, well, actually, yeah, everybody buys physical. They just don't believe you.
you're getting these you're seeing sometimes at these festivals. I've seen this have been, when I'm on festivals and they've booked an artist because of their streaming numbers, their online presence. They've come along, and I'm not naming anyone obviously, but you see these people and they're rubbish, and then they never come back again and no one ever books them again, but the promoter booked them because they just so so sometimes that's happening. That you're literally getting bands or artists that aren't that haven't learn how to go out even and play or something, getting offered a really good slot and then never being seen again because they fluffed it, and the audience has a bad experience. Everyone has a bad experience. So yeah, it's definitely a lesson for would-be promoters is not to go purely on the metrics. You've got to dig a lot deeper. But yeah, we definitely are a band that suffer from not fully knowing who our audience is or where they are and how many of them are around. You know, we kind of almost have to rely on, we actually almost have to go on faith that it's there, you know.
Yeah.
Which is fine too.
I'm probably going to have to go soon, if
Me
that's
too,
okay.
yeah, I have to.
How is Clayton? Is that good?
Yeah, that's fine. There were some other questions, but I can just email them to you if you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I want just ask: are there any, collaborations of note? Do you plan to collaborate with, the Friars or Ray Morris? What's coming up next for either of you?
There is something. I'm going off to Brazil on Wednesday, and I'm on a record, and I can't. I've been forbidden to say who it is, and it's silly because I could just tell you, but if it's public knowledge, they won't pay me probably. So once I've sort of done that recording, but it's in Brazil, and I'm working with a guy called Cassim Kamal, Moreno Valesso, and Domenico Lancelotti. But the artist who it's for, I'm not allowed to say. They basically, so that's crazy. But there you go. And after that, I haven't got anything. There's something possibly in Poland that I'm going to be involved in, which is to do with Chopin's birthday or something like that. And I've never been a massive knowledge on Chopin, but they've told me about a project that sounds really, really fascinating. So that's the only other thing I can think of that is, yeah, there might be other things and I've forgotten them. Rob's got lots of things.
I'll be out with the Turin Breaks guys who I've been playing with and managing for the long time. So I'm out, yeah, doing an acoustic tour from October onwards as well, which is slightly unfortunate in the timing because that's when we're trying to do some Llamas shows. So we're trying to dovetail a few dates into where I can fit them in and to where the rest of the band can fit them in. But it's going to happen, so it's all good. So yeah, I'm busy doing festivals in the summer as well, with Turin Breaks, and yeah,
One
looking
one
forward
last
to Llamaing.
Yeah.
one last question is,
Yes.
Sean, you said, you know, you think this might be the last High Llamas album, but you're gonna wait until you're 68 to decide why then, and what would have to happen for you to decide to do another?
I don't know. I mean, I'm in my head. I'm not sort of. I want to tour this record, and because when you think of what might happen, if hopefully we'll play a little tour for this record, and then maybe an extensive one, and the benefactor will come along and breeze to America, and we'll do the Llamas, the Hey Panda in America, and then after that, if Drag City get it all together, there'll be reissues, and so quite possibly after Hey Panda, there might be 5 years of so 2025 there'll be reissues. The reissues will go into 2026, and if that works, the touring would probably go into 2028 if you think about it, you know. And so I'm kind of, you know, I that's a lot, you know, and I'm not young, and I kind of, and so personally, once Panda was done, and the reissues happen, I cannot think beyond that. Is that fair enough, Rob?
Yeah, I think that sounds exactly fair enough. As you say, if things go well, you know, or went how we would want them to, then yeah, then we could be doing stuff, and it wouldn't make any sense to bring out a new record and queer the pitch of the re-releases and stuff like that as well. So it's not worth thinking about any of that until it kind of starts to make itself known anyway. You'll feel it, you know, you feel it when it's time to do something. And
Yeah.
you know, the best thing is to not necessarily, if you start putting that down on paper, it could be rather sterile, and it might actually not, it might mean that you don't feel creative. So I think that's probably, I think it's best just to leave it ambiguous, you know, and
Yeah.
the door's always open.
And then also that allows us as individuals to do our thing as well, because we've all got things to do. Rob's got the breaks. I've got bits of offered things. John is very, you know, he runs. He's very, very, very important in musical education in London. And you know, we can get on with those things, and we're all quite a lot. Now we're seriously kind of elderly, well, older people, and you know, that allows us to do that. And so we're all, there will be music, but it might be in different ways in different places.
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you for being so generous with your time and your
Oh,
energy. This has been great. I think this is going to answer a lot of questions that fans have had for a long time. So I appreciate you so much for this and for the new album, for all your music and everything you do and your involvement. And yeah, for bringing Livvy in. That was a pleasant surprise.
oh, Clayton, it's thank you for being there for so long, and being such a vocal cheerleader and supporter of our music. We really depend on people like you. You are very important. You get it out there. You basically kind of make all the connections, and I really, really appreciate that. And I really hope that your health stays with you. I know we can do this again.
You too.
Thanks so much, Clayton. Yeah, really appreciate it. It's been great.
All right.
Okay. Take care. And